Okay, so quite a number of you have been asking for the best settings when the Sonos Arc is being paired with a pair of Era 300 as the surround, and today here we are. The Sonos Arc is paired with a Sub Gen 3, just one of them, not in a dual sub configuration. And as surrounds, we are using the new Era 300 from Sonos, which has two additional upward firing drivers for better Atmos effects. I guess the audience today is a little bit smaller because the Era 300s are actually very expensive. A pair of them will cost $900, which is the same price as the Sonos Arc, which costs $900 as well, give or take $1. But for those of you who have spent the $900 on a pair of Era 300, they are probably the best surround configuration that you can get for your Sonos Arc soundbar. So how does that all sound, and how do we set it up for best performance, for the biggest soundstage, best Atmos bubble, biggest Atmos bubble? So let's get to that right away. Now do note that the sound profile is similar from 14.18's firmware version. Today we are at Sonos 15.3, so the sound profile is roughly the same. For those of you who are not using the Era 300 or not pairing them with a pair of surround, do check out my video, maybe right up here, where the best settings for the Sonos Arc with a Sub Gen 3 is shared with you. Now, most of you are returning viewers, and I thank you for your support so far. For those of you new to my channel, do know that I come up with an upfront summary and I try to cover everything that you need to go away and leave the video within the first 3 minutes of the video. And this is the set of best settings that I'm recommending for the Sonos Arc when paired with a Sub Gen 3 and a pair of Era 300s. So from there, you should be able to get a much better Atmos experience. The heights channels are greatly enhanced. You will get a huge Atmos bubble, and sounds will sound like it's coming right from above. The soundstage is very smooth, the soundstage is wide. You will get slightly smoother bass response and a much more extended treble response from these settings. Now do note that in this set of settings here, I have not turned on Trueplay because some of you don't have access to Trueplay, and I'm just trying to be as inclusive as possible. Now for those of you who are members of this channel, I'm putting at the end of the video a link to a members only video which will explain what Trueplay does to this setup. For those of you who are not members, don't worry, you are not missing out much. Becoming a member on this channel is more a form of support for me rather than getting extra value out of the channel, although I do try to give you extra value. So as you can see from the best settings, I have actually done a couple of things. Everything is stock, so let's move from the stock. You need to turn speech enhancement on. To turn on speech enhancement, I'll teach you a little bit where you can access the settings, and every other setting I'm going to be talking about. Bass needs to set to -1, treble a +6, and the sub set to a +3. This is for a single sub. If you have a dual sub, try playing around with a +2 maybe, and that should get you right around in the ballpark. Heights channel has been set to a +10. Now note that heights channel doesn't actually change the sound profile. I will illustrate it to you in a little bit, but in general, the sound profile is not changed, so it won't make a lot of changes, but it does somehow enlarge the soundstage and create a much bigger Atmos bubble, and you can really hear sounds as though they are coming from above you, driven by the two upward firing driver on the Sonos Arc and the extra two drivers on the Sonos Era 300 firing upward channel from the back of you. Now things are going to be a little bit different from the best settings video for my Sonos Arc, which I did about half a year ago, because I am in a completely new room now. This is a dedicated studio for my Sonos equipment, for my sound equipment, for making my videos. So everything is pretty standardized and everything should be standard from this point on. Now there's some of you who are new to Sonos and are not sure where to make these changes, but no worries, I'm going to step you through with a couple of screenshots so that you know where to make those changes. Now the first thing that I have to assume that you have done is you have already set up your Sonos Arc with the sub as well as the Era 300s as the surround. Any other surround, make slight changes here and there and you should be able to hear some of the differences. But today, after this set of settings, I guarantee you're going to hear a lot better, a lot more immersive experience with smoother bass and much better extended treble all around. So let's step through. First, you open up the app and you will go to the Sonos Arc. You select the Sonos Arc because that's the system that you are trying to adjust for. Now make sure that some video material is playing, otherwise it will not show up the next setting that we're going to do. So once you start playing some video material, you will be able to see that there will be two bubbles that will pop up on the screen. One is a night mode and the other one is the speech enhancement. Leave the night mode and turn on speech enhancement. Now you'll see a volume slider. Click on the settings icon on the right of the pop-up. Right, from there you will see a bass slider and a treble slider. Bass you set to -1, treble you will add a +6 here. Leave the loudness on, that is on by default the moment you take the Sonos Era or any Sonos system out of the box. Now from there you will click the gear icon on the top right of this screen. Now scroll down all the way to the sound section. Click on Trueplay. You can enable it, or if you have not done it, you can perform Trueplay. For this video, for my recommendation, I am saying that you turn the Trueplay off. Now, if you need help, you can check out my video on how to perform Trueplay right up here. The next thing you do is you go to the sub audio and you will slide the sub to a +3. Follow on, go back, go to the heights audio and slide all the way to the right to a +10. You can do a +3, you can do a +4, you can do a +10. It's really up to you, but there's no reason to go negative. And why I put it at +10 is because the heights effects are so much better enhanced without changing the sound profile at all. Now, after making all the changes, you might be wondering, what does all of these changes mean and how do they sound like? And I'm going to take you step by step to show you the frequency response chart after you make each and every of those changes. So on the screen right here, you will see a white curve. Now this is the Sonos Arc with the Sub Gen 3, one of them, and a pair of Era 300 as the surround. And this is the stock setting, meaning to say I've done nothing, I've not changed any EQ settings. This is out of the box how the Sonos Era setup is going to sound in my room, in my studio right now. So of course it's going to sound a little bit different for you than for me. So let's take this as a relative base point where we start the discussion. Now, as you can see, the Sonos Arc itself, or rather Sonos engineers, do tune their products to be a slightly bass heavy. Now on the left side of the screen, that's where the bass is. In the middle portion is where the mid-range is, and on the far left there, it will be the treble response. So you will see that the Sonos engineers have actually tune it such that it is bass heavy. Now this is around the mid bass, the higher bass region, right about 100 Hertz or so. So there is a bump there and the treble will tail off. Now when I try to tune systems, I try to achieve a balanced flatline response, meaning to say when you put in 20 Hertz at 85 decibel, it plays back 20 Hertz at 85 decibels, and when you play 1000 Hertz, 1 kilohertz at 85, it plays back at 85. You play back 10 kilohertz at 85 dB, it plays back at 85 dB, and that's what a perfect system is supposed to respond to. Now some of you may argue that, well, Sonos engineered their sound to be exciting, to be interesting, and that's what you should respect and you live with, but everybody's preference is different, and I try to go neutral, and hopefully that gives me a better sound experience. It may work for you, it may not. Try it out and let me know what you think in the comments section below. So the first thing that I've applied is the speech enhancement. Now let me show you what speech enhancement does. Now the green curve that is coming up on the screen right now, this is after you turn on speech enhancement. You will see that speech enhancement actually brings up the higher mid-range and towards the treble range. It will prop it up, right? The white is the stock. So you see that the treble response and the slightly higher mid-range response has been propped up. And for the bass response, it actually brings it down. So the curve is slightly flatter already, but there's still some emphasis here a little bit on the higher mid-range and on the bass section, not exactly flat. Now you will feel that, okay, maybe that's taking the bass down a notch or two, so why are we doing that? Now, all these changes I'm recommending is a cumulative change, right? So you're not changing one thing and ignoring the rest. Everything has to be taken in its entirety. And the moment you turn on the speech enhancement, you will realize that the vocals are a lot more present. You will find that the male vocals and the female vocals are coming across to you a lot louder. Dialogue is a lot clearer and more present in the entire soundtrack. So for those of you who are worried about the sound, the explosion going off and overpowering everything else, and you have to lower the volume then, and when the speech and dialogue comes on, you have to increase the volume so that you can hear them, this will help alleviate some of those problems. Now the next curve that I'm applying is actually the cyan curve here. Now what is the cyan curve? The cyan curve is when the bass is brought down by 1 notch, bass -1 setting. So I've removed the white stock setting so that you can see how each of the change makes to the previous change. So the previous one is the speech enhancement on, which is still in green, and the cyan one is when you reduce bass by -1. So as you can tell, the bass from about 300 Hertz downwards is going to be brought down just a little bit. So why is Peter suggesting that you bring down the bass? Well, there's a good reason for that. So just hear me on and wait out for all the curves to accumulate to the final curve. Now the next change I'm going to be making, and I will remove the green curve, leaving the cyan there, and putting a yellow curve out. Now this yellow curve is to increase treble by 6. Now when you set treble plus 6, what does it do to your sound? This is exactly what happens. From the previous curve, it would have lifted the treble. Now the treble response from about 1500 onwards all the way to 20 kilohertz right at the far left is going to be lifted up significantly. And when that happens, it is a good thing because, well, now everything sounds a lot clearer. There's high levels of clarity. Your soundstage actually gets wider because the surround cues, they are all in the higher frequency. Your environmental cues and things like whistles and small little sounds all around you, they are going to come up a lot clearer and a lot sharper. Now the next important change that we're going to be making is to add a +3 to the sub, and this is shown by the orange curve. So the rest of the curve is relatively untouched, but the orange curve here, when we increase the bass by a +3, it actually touches the frequency from about 150 Hertz downwards. Now remember, we set a bass -1. Bass -1 brings down the bass from 300 Hertz downwards, but for the sub, it actually only affects the sub, not the entire system bass response. So the sub only produces, by right, the crossover is about 110 Hertz. So this is actually impacting the sub only, and so you will see that the bass response is actually propped up all the way from about 150 Hertz downwards. So you're going to get much better bass response, and this is quite amazing because right down to 30, even 25, 20 Hertz, you're going to see and you're going to hear a much better bass response, and everything is smoother. So right now at this point, if you focus just on the orange curve, you'll see that it is relatively flat already. Now the last change that I'm going to be making is actually the heights channel, and this is the one in red. Now you're going to say, hey, maybe there isn't that much of a difference. Actually, there isn't that much of a difference. Now when you adjust heights as well as surrounds, when you increase the levels for heights and surround, they do not actually make any change to your sound profile at all. So that you can tell that there isn't actually a change in the sound profile from this frequency response chart. There's a slight small change over at the highest frequency, but it's not something that you can detect right away. But what the frequency response doesn't measure is the soundstage, right? It will measure the response of the system, but not the soundstage. At this point in time, when I'm listening to any music or any soundtrack, watching movies, you will find that the heights effects are greatly enhanced. The sound is really coming from many different areas and even bouncing off the ceiling towards you, so you get a much enhanced and heightened height effects. Okay, so now at this point, all the changes are already made. I'm just going to pull up the white again. The white curve was the original stock. The red curve is actually our new frequency response for my recommended settings. Now, you will tell, right, that the white curve is actually exaggerating bass quite a little bit, and the treble is not brought up. Now with the best settings that I have recommended to you, you can tell that the entire curve, the red curve here, is now a lot smoother all the way from the lowest frequencies right up to the highest frequencies. Of course, there will be tail offs at the lowest frequencies and the tail offs above 10 kilohertz, but those are things that, well, unless you're paying a lot of money, you're not going to be getting flat response all throughout, because your room is going to interact with it, your setup is going to interact, the sounds are going to get lost through the air when it's transmitting from the speakers to your ears. But, well, this is about as good as it gets. So this has really enhanced the listening experience for me. Everything is coming through a lot clearer, and I really mean clearer, right? The clarity is super high with this red color setup, which again, I'm going to put out the settings right here for you to refer to. and I have been very happy with this setup. Now, this setup took me quite a long time to do, right? Because the Era 300s are relatively new. They are launched within the last couple of 1 or 2 months maybe, and I have been listening to them and work has taken over. I don't have a lot of time to listen to them, but I don't want to be rushed into making a video for you guys without first fully understanding and experiencing the Era 300 for myself and finding out what works for me. Now again, these are my preferences and this is my room. Your room will differ, your preferences will differ. So you could just take this set of settings as a form of a baseline. See whether you like it or not. Let me know how you feel about them, and you can make slight tweaks from there. Maybe you don't want a treble +6 because it's too sharp to you. You just bring it down to a +4, +3 maybe. And if you want a little bit more bass, if you prefer the bass that the Sonos engineers have designed for you, then bring up the sub, bring up the bass for all that you care about. Alright, so if this video has been helpful to you, I really appreciate if you could drop a comment to thank me in the comment section below. Use it in your, say thank you in your native language so that I can learn something. And I'll know that you have watched this video this far. I know I talk a lot during my videos, but I do hope to be able to impart everything I know, everything I have experienced in as succinct a manner as possible. Liking and subscribing to this channel is also a form of reward for me. Now, watching the ads on this channel helps me, but not as much and not as rewarding financially as a Patreon contribution. Now, I've linked up a Patreon QR code right here. If you scan the QR code, it will bring you to my Patreon page where you can set up a monthly contribution. Or if you don't want to do that, a simple super like on this video, I think the icon is somewhere down there. And using the super like, you can make a small one-time contribution towards my effort. Now, I have also set up a members only section. And by joining this channel as a member, the join button is somewhere right here, I think, you will be able to access members only information. Now, before we leave this video, I have left 2 sets of recording. Now, these 2 sets of recording are one using the stock settings, and the second set of recording is using my recommended best settings for the Sonos Arc with the Era 300s as surround and a Sub Gen 3. Now, if that will help you, do enjoy it.
This is Dolby Atmos, the world's first object-based cinematic audio. With powerful moving audio that transcends from channels to moving around you with pinpoint accuracy. Whether the soundscape sets the mood of a scene,
What is this place? Come on, you guys, let's go.
or captures the full extent
Do you want to know my secret?
of nature's fury. This is Dolby Atmos, the world's first object-based cinematic audio. With powerful moving audio that transcends from channels to moving around you with pinpoint accuracy.
White zone is for immediate loading and
Whether the soundscape sets the mood of a scene,
Whoa, what is this place?
captures the full extent
Do you want to know my secret?
of nature's fury.
The members only section, I will be releasing those binaural recording together with the frequency response chart and the real-time spectrum analyzer so you can hear it for yourself. Now in the members only video, which I'll be linking at the end of the video, I will also be adding one more section which has got to do with Trueplay. Now, so far, all these settings, I have not applied Trueplay. Some of you don't have access to Trueplay, so I don't apply Trueplay. But Trueplay does something to the sound curve, right? If you are interested, you should check out that video, but it is in a members only section. Even if you don't do that, it is completely fine. Just take this, you are already 99% home. Join as a member only if you want to support my effort, only if you want to thank me and reward me. Otherwise, you're still good on this set of settings. Trueplay does take into account your room. Trueplay does take into account your sitting main listening position, but without that, you are still good because nobody ever sits at the same place because there are more people watching the video than you, unless, of course, you are all alone, which I hope not. Oh God, I want to be alone. So remember, if you join as a wireless audiophile member on this channel, it is a form of contribution, it is a form of reward, and I will try to reward you and deliver value to you as a member. So if you want to check that out, here's the video. And again, if you have not seen my previous video made about half a year ago for the Sonos Arc's best setting with a sub without surround, do check out this video right here, and I will see you over in one of those videos.